Your Creative Push, episode 215.
Comparison is the killer of happiness, and in the end, it's about the art, and that's all that really matters.
Welcome to Your Creative Push, the podcast that pushes you to pursue your creative passions. I'm your host, Youngmin Brown, and my guest today is Audra Auclair. Audra is a Canadian artist whose work has spanned across many mediums. She has been exhibited locally and internationally in Australia and America. Although she achieved a graphic design degree, she instead specializes in exploring the surreal and beautiful female form with her transcendent fusion of fine art and illustration. She also has a YouTube channel in which she focuses on art, mentality, and life within an honest and calm atmosphere. Audra, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, of course. Thanks for being here. I was wondering if we could start out by kind of you talking about the idea of obtaining a graphic art degree or a graphic design degree and then kind of venturing off into something else. Like, how long was that process, and did you try to get jobs in graphic design out of college?
Yeah, I did. Actually, I wasn't sure out of high school what to really do because they don't really teach you basically what to do after you get out of high school. They just teach you the art, and that's it. So originally I wanted to go to like an art school, but I just didn't feel right about it. And my roommate actually convinced me to take the graphic design course that she took. And so I did that, and it was like a year-long online course. I quickly realized that it was not what I had wanted, but I completed it anyways. I think I got like 97% or something on it. So it was fairly easy, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. I wasn't into vectors and all that. So I figured I paid the money for the course. So I decided to use my knowledge for making money anyway. So I tried looking up online freelancing stuff, and I had some luck, but it was pretty difficult. I graduated pretty much when the recession was happening. So, yeah, pretty much right in the recession, like 2008. So
Me too.
Yeah, right. So finding a job was kind of not the greatest, let alone a freelance job online when you're competing with people in countries whose currency is a lot less than yours. So it was definitely tough. And I found myself at like a crossroads trying to figure out what exactly I should do next. I took all these random jobs that were basically just, I was trying to fulfill whatever was needed from anyone that could offer any form of money. So I was doing all this different stuff, like a comic page here and like a logo there. And I didn't have any like proper style because I was still getting to know myself and my art, and I couldn't even like make a proper portfolio because everyone that I was finding wanted something different. So yeah, it kind of caused this like a few years of just trying to figure out what I should do and where I fit in, because you don't think about it like when you think you want to do art, there's so many paths that you can take. Like, you could be a scientific illustrator, you could be a t-shirt designer, you could be, a fashion designer. It can go into so many different avenues. Like, even if you pick illustration, like, are you going to do publications? Are you going to do children's books? Like, it's such like a huge variety of things. And I think after graduating that course, it was just like whoa, what do I do? Like, I feel like this course didn't prepare me. I feel like school didn't really prepare me. And I considered going to art school, but I didn't. I felt I was pretty headstrong about trying to figure it out on my own for some reason. But yeah, that's kind of how it worked out.
Right. It can be frustrating that there's like infinite paths, and it's like almost like there's like too many choices when you're like, wow, like I could literally do anything. But it's also inspiring too, the fact that you could literally do anything. And I think it is, yeah, like art school could like kind of push you in one direction, but I think it's better to, like you said, try to figure it out on your own. So how were you able to find your style when everybody was asking for something different? What was it that like put you on the path that you are now?
Well, after a couple of years of just trying to do freelance stuff, and I went to a couple of local places here in Victoria, and I would hand out like prints and whatnot, but I kind of got fed up, and I was walking through the mall one day, and I saw this screen outside of like, I don't know, one of like these travel stores, and it was showing this really beautiful place with like blue waters and everything. And I was with my friend. I was like, oh my God, I want to go there. And she's like, oh, that's Thailand. It's really cheap. You could probably go and, kayak around there for like $30 with a tour guide or something. So I was like, I want to move to Thailand. And then I can figure out my style, like my artistic style. So we moved to Thailand and like packed everything in 2 bags. I had like my Cintiq, my drawing tablet, and my laptop. And we stayed there for a while. We had attended a couple of years. I was dead set on trying to find my style while I was there. And I was dead set on finding an agent, like getting together a proper portfolio, because I was like, I think I'd like to do illustration. This feels like something that I could do. And I spent, I think, 6 months trying to basically force a style to happen. I spent all this time making this portfolio, and it was all like digital stuff. And I would try to still get freelance work on the side with my boyfriend working as like a programmer. And he was mostly supporting us at that time. I eventually was just like, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. So I ran back to Canada with my tail between my legs. And I was just like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. Like, I just want to make art. Like, I just want to make art so bad. And then we moved around a little bit with family and eventually found our way back to Victoria, where I just started painting whatever the heck I wanted. I completely let go of what I thought I needed to do. I completely let go of the thought that I needed my own style, because I've always been really kind of random and flexible with my style. I haven't stuck with one thing. And so it was such a weird thing. It was like there was an invisible dam that I'd created with all these expectations that I thought I needed to, I don't know, be an illustrator or a graphic designer. I couldn't just be an artist for some reason. I thought I needed a trade to make this work. I couldn't just be a fine artist because it wasn't going to pay me or something. I don't know why. And when I finally just did whatever the heck I wanted, and I'm talking like whatever the heck I wanted, like I just drew like pretty unicorn girls and like all of these like fancy things that I it was just like, I just want to draw pretty things. And so I started doing that, and it was so weird. It just, everything started kind of happening, and I started being more frequent with posting my work up. I think I had an Etsy up at the time, had some store up, and I just spend all day drawing these little originals, and I do like 4, maybe like 3 to 5-ish originals a day, just like small ones. And I eventually was making enough money that I could actually afford to get my own printer. I could make my own prints, and then like a scanner, and then it just started like snowballing from there. Yeah, it was great because I didn't realize that all I really needed to do was just be myself and do what I wanted, and everything would kind of fall into place. It was really strange and far out after a few years of just trying to make things work, that all I needed to do is what came naturally.
I love it. Yeah, it's I like the story about Thailand where like your goal was to like force it, like to make it happen, you know what I mean? And I love the lesson of, all you have to do is really just let go of those expectations, that invisible dam, like you said, of expectations, and just, it kind of finds you once you do that.
Yeah, I definitely feel like I really lost myself then, and it still happens every now and again now, because you get all caught up in like, the numbers and the business side of things. But yeah, you just gotta kind of let it happen and do what comes naturally.
Yeah, and that's the other thing about that's great about art or any kind of creative pursuit, even writing for me. You can't really tell the art what you think. It's like sometimes the art tells you what you actually think, and it like teaches you in a way. So it's like that idea of letting go. It's not only good for like finding your style, but like finding yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree. Any artist probably know that you do definitely find yourself while you're drawing. I try to distract myself a lot of the times because my head gets too crazy. So like put on, a podcast or something like that while I'm painting. But it definitely is something that kind of forces you to learn about yourself and how to balance different, things in your life. And it's interesting. And I know it's the same for like writers and stuff too.
Well, kind of speaking of balancing, and I know that especially once you start making it a business, and I know all the stuff that goes behind the scenes that people don't really see. How do you balance the time then with all the art and all the kind of secretarial work as well?
It's definitely been a huge learning curve. I feel like I wasn't really prepared for all of the business stuff, so it's been definitely a huge learning curve. And it's been something that I just slowly pieced together over time. I think having a schedule has been really important, and just trying to not let myself indulge too much in things. Like I love video games, and so I can get really caught up in them. But it's hard because like it's, my TV is a few meters away from me, and like I could easily just do that. But if you work at home, you have to be really strict with yourself. It goes the other way too, though. Sometimes I don't want to stop painting, and I burn myself out a lot. So it's a matter of finding balance, I guess. And that's something that I think comes with age and comes with experience. So the more experience you have with, I guess, having a business and making art, you can kind of figure out how much time you should spend doing each thing, when you should get up and move around, how to spread out planning things, and eventually it just kind of comes together. I'm still learning, that's for sure, but I feel like it's definitely gotten a lot better. But yeah, you have to learn like how to be good at managing your time, and you have to do so many things that you don't really expect to do if you don't have like an agent, or if you're not having a gallery represent you completely. You have to make sure you're doing all of your branding, and make sure you're always stocked up with, packaging supplies, prints, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a matter of making sure you have everything, setting time aside for when things go wrong, and scheduling, I think. So
when you schedule, like, do you have like a typical day? Is it like you do kind of, packaging and sending stuff out and then catching up on emails and then doing art? Or do you have like specific days set up for today's my creative day and I'm not going to like even open my email and stuff like that?
It's kind of random, to be honest. I just recently started sticking to like a really strict schedule. I've been using Google Calendars. And so I try to draw every day, because I think that's good to kind of stay, limbered up. But I do kind of give myself a little bit of, freedom, because I am naturally just a huge scatterbrain. I think a lot of artists kind of are. But I do try to, if I do emails, for example, I do try to do them like in the morning while I'm eating. I've been trying to not paint as much at nighttime, but it always seems to work out that I paint at night for some reason. But yeah, I think the thing that's consistent with every day is just emails in the morning, and that way I kind of get that out of the way. And when I do YouTube videos, it's usually an all-day thing. And I try and do that like at a certain day of every week, and I try to do my Patreon stuff at a certain day of every week as well.
Cool. Well, and going into the YouTube channel, because I have a lot of questions. Yeah. So why did you start the YouTube? as like, you know, you have a Instagram following and you're doing well on there. Why move into YouTube as well?
You know what? I'm honestly not sure. It's the same thing. It's the same reason I do a lot of things. I just have a feeling that I should do it, and I do it.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
And I think my first video was just recording like a painting, and I just put like a random music over top of it. And I had like family videos on it. And then I don't know, I like making videos. I've always kind of been interested in it. I used to watch those like anime music videos and and stuff, and always wanted to like edit those and stuff when I was in high school. So I think I've always been kind of interested in making videos. But yeah, I'm not sure why exactly it just happened.
No, I think that's like the perfect reason, and kind of the whole reason for the podcast is you get the feeling that you're supposed to do something, like something in your brain's telling you, yeah, maybe you should start a YouTube channel. And the whole point is to just do it, and to not really let those like kind of doubts start to creep into your head, and just go for it and figure things out kind of on the fly. Just if you have this kind of inclination to do something, to just do it no matter what.
Yeah.
You don't have to give yourself a good reason.
Yes. I'm very about intuition and going with your feels. Like I
going
think,
with the feels.
Yeah, I think that's like a big reason why, like, I started a zodiac series, and I did the first 2 zodiac signs and I stopped because I was like, this doesn't feel right. I need to wait. And I left it for, I think, a year, and I'm starting it up again now. But I've gotten so many comments like, why didn't you start? Why didn't you start? I'm like, it doesn't feel right. And I get that a lot of the time. Like, I go with how I'm feeling about almost everything. And it's actually done me pretty well. For the most part, as long as you kind of use logic as well.
Yeah, you're right. The same goes for not doing something too. It's you gotta just trust your intuition.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Now, did you notice that your Instagram following came over to YouTube, or did you develop a new audience on YouTube?
I think it's a little bit of both. There's definitely a lot of people from Instagram that I recognize that comment on the YouTube videos, and yeah, I think they kind of cross over a little bit. They're a great following, though. I love everyone so much that follows. They're really supportive. I've been actually wanting to do on my Patreon, I've been wanting to do like a secret sketch club thing, because I noticed a lot of them are kind of like at the point I was, like maybe 5 years ago, looking for some kind of direction. So I was thinking it'd be so cool to have something where you could, like, I would get together a bunch of photos and have a list of like prompts for people to draw to kind of grow and learn from. It'd be cool to make something like that, like kind of a list where, I don't know, I guess you could sketch different things like the stable work on hands or whatever. Because I have realized that working on just something that you're kind of weak at every day has definitely been really helpful and made me feel a lot better about myself as an artist. Just forcing myself to draw these kind of boring things that you don't want to draw or you try and hide. And I don't know, I think that'd be pretty cool to include.
Yes, you should definitely do that. I like that idea. But I also agree that like a lot of times people like to go with what they're strong at and they keep working on that, as opposed to, you know, in the back of your mind, you know that you're not good at drawing eyes, or not good at, you know, writing plots for novels or whatever. That's one of the things that I struggle with. Yes. But it's like you just stick with the things that you're good at, like the short stories or the, you know, drawing hands, because you're really good at drawing hands. And I think it's really important to just kind of attack your weaknesses, if that makes sense. Yeah,
that's kind of what the whole point was, for sure. Like, I'm still learning how to do hands, and also I find a lot of times artists will and I do it too, they'll get good at something and then they're like, all right, I'm done at like I'm good at hands now, and then they stop trying to practice drawing references of hands for a few years, and then you're always kind of going from what's in your mind instead of using references. And then you find a few years down the road, like, oh wait, this hand looks wrong. Like, hands are starting to always look wrong to me now. So you kind of need to always be brushing up and using references. I'm really bad for that. I love just like using my mind for things instead of finding references, but it's definitely proven this past year as I've been using references more that it's pretty important.
Well, how about references of yourself? Like when you do your speed painting videos, do you ever like look back at them and kind of notice something? Like notice your like some mistake that you're making or something that you're doing well?
All the time. I like honestly, it's hard for me to like a painting the next day after I finish it. I think that's usually a pretty common thing, but
yeah.
It's hard, especially when you do have videos, because you want to just delete them all afterwards.
Yeah.
Same thing with like Instagram. I look back at my pictures and I'm like, I want to get rid of all of this.
Yep.
But
when I listen back to old episodes, I'm like, oh God.
Right. It's really weird hearing yourself. Like that's one of the main things on YouTube that I'm like, or seeing yourself on YouTube. Just like, I just don't want to see myself. A lot of YouTubers feel that way though. They don't like looking back at their videos. They're like, why was my hair like that? Why?
Why did I hit record that day? I was having such a bad hair day.
It's okay. It's you. It's the baby you. And it's gotten to where you are now. So you should embrace it. But at the same time, it's understandable that it's just a sign of growth, basically.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, and you do that like on steroids too, because you have videos where you actually open up your old sketchbook and give a sketchbook tour.
Yeah.
So like, what is that like?
I think it's okay. I think the hardest thing is when I'm recording the current sketchbook, because as you look through it, the first pages of the sketchbook are like not the greatest. They're like, I don't want to show this stuff. And but yeah, as you get to the end, it's okay, and you can really see the growth. And yeah, especially when you're watching old videos too, it's like I think it's good though. Honestly, I look at my sketchbooks a lot of the time to get inspired, because it does show growth. Like when I'm feeling really down on myself, like I'm gotten stagnant and I just feel like I suck at everything. I look at them and I'm like, I used to suck worse or more than I do now. So, I mean, it's okay.
Absolutely. To see that growth is the most kind of inspiring thing you can do for yourself.
I think, yeah, for me, definitely the most inspiring thing.
You mentioned before when we were talking about scheduling, how you have to like kind of schedule time in case things go wrong.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, do you have any like specific stories of like kind of worst moments?
Not really. It happens all the time. Like almost everything that I plan gets kind of pushed out farther than I want it to be. I've been pretty good at it lately, but sometimes we will go out to get errands, because I usually go with my boyfriend, because he helps me with like packaging and shipping and everything. And since we never really we never spend a lot of time out, because we're always at home working, we'll start to just like kind of wander around and sort of get lost in just like being free from the confines of work. So
freedom.
Yeah. So a lot of times when we like have to go to do errands and stuff, we kind of get sort of lost just going out, and almost always trying to find an excuse to eat somewhere, because it's so much better and we love food. But yeah, nothing crazy for the most part. We're both pretty lax about things, and we try and maintain a somewhat kind of strict schedule. We try not to kind of tie ourselves down too much with things,
which is important to do.
Yeah.
And speaking of Lopi, you guys are doing some graphic novels, is that correct?
Yeah, we've been working on this graphic novel for so many years now, probably going on like 4 years. And we've just finished the storyline for the first book. We're going about it kind of a weird way. The graphic novel is going to be kind of like the second comic we do, because we decided we want to experiment to make sure that we can actually like kind of give birth to a comic and have it actually be good before we dive into this like huge series. So we've taken a character out of the main story, and we're doing a very short, well, it was supposed to be short, but it's not going to be, kind of comic on that character. And we're going to see how well that does. And if it does well, then we're going to move on to the next thing. But it's been pretty crazy. The reason why it's taken so long is because it's on another planet. So we've had to create religions, the society, the history. We've literally gone back to the beginning of the planet. We've figured out all the planets that revolve around that planet. We've gone into the physics of the planet, the wars, like the species, plants, farming, like what kind of things they farm, because it's got to be completely different. We want it to be different than any fantasy thing we've seen before. So we've been working for years on the world itself and then the plot line. It's been a huge project, and it's a struggle because you want to make sure everything's perfect, but there's a point where you have to just kind of say, like, you know what, it's never going to get done if I'm going to wait for this thing to be perfect. So I think I'm going to start making the art for it this year, and I'm trying to just stick with a race design. That's been my my biggest issue is sticking with the design for each of the races and just making sure that I'm not going to change my mind on it. I'm not going to hate it like years from now, because I know it's going to be a thing it's going to take years. So I need to make sure I'm not going to be sick of it. With a lot of paintings, you get sick of it after, a month, and I need to commit to this thing for a very long time. So I think that's been my biggest hurdle with it. And comics pose they pose a whole nother level of stuff that you need to learn. I think animation is probably one of the hardest forms of art you can do. I feel like comics are like the next level below that, because you need to really watch people. You need to watch their expressions, how they stand, how they lean on each other, the positioning of the camera, like pre-planning where the bubbles are going to go, and like everything. It's just there's so much that goes into it. It's insane. It's definitely not as freeing as making fine art, because, the sky's the limit. But with comics, it needs to be it's like an orchestra. It's not one person playing guitar. It's a huge orchestra of just things that need to line up well. It's been an adventure, and I'm just excited to get it done. I really hope we can.
Yeah, I love that. And I love how similar it is to like starting a freelance art career. It's like there's so much more that goes into it, and so many more puzzle pieces that you have to figure out kind of on the fly as you're doing it. Yeah,
it's crazy, but I mean, I think that all of the work going into it will be worth it once it's all done.
Absolutely. Yeah, I like the idea of making that whole universe, that whole world, and then kind of once you do, you get to play in it. Do you think that there's a little bit of, answering too many questions, like as a way to almost stall the process for yourself, like to stall you from starting?
Maybe. I think the main thing for me is just, I think I've been putting off doing a lot of the designs for the characters and everything just because I feel like I'm not good enough yet. And I feel like that's a lot of the reason why I've been doing a lot of studies and sketches lately, is because I really want to do my best with this. Like, I think this is going to be like the biggest project I do in my life. Mm-hmm. So I try to make sure that everything is planned out perfectly, but at the same time, I don't know. I think it is hard to just stick with one thing. So I do ask myself a lot, like, is this good enough? Like, should I change this race's face? Like, should they be wearing this? Where do they live? And it is a lot of like, you're constantly speculating everything you do and wondering whether or not it's good enough or you should go forward with it. It's hard to know when to just start.
Right. Yeah, that is a fine line, and that quote, not good enough yet. I feel like a lot of people have that, and it holds them back from actually starting. And it is, well, with such a big project, like you said, this is like probably the biggest project you're going to do in your life. It is scary then to actually commit, because you're like locked into these choices that you're making for this like universe that you're creating. So good luck. No, seriously, I can't wait to see it though. I can't wait to see that develop.
Yeah, I'm really excited too. I'm starting to really fall in love with the world. It's really cool. Like when you have anything, like you can make absolutely anything, and you can kind of, like, we wanted to have floating islands. And so we kind of like went backwards and we're like, okay, what would the physics be of these floating islands? Like, let's think about magnetism and like all these different things, and you can like make these crazy far out things, and then you're like, now let's make a fake science for this to make it make sense. And it's a lot of fun. It's really cool. You can make anything, and it's funny because sometimes you will start to like think about like, ooh, I want to make it like this movie. Like I like this thing they use in this movie, and then you stop and you're like, why am I even thinking about this when I can make something that's so weird that people have never seen before? And I don't know, you just kind of are free to do anything. You can completely separate yourself from the things that you're used to seeing, like green trees. Like, why are they not purple? Or, green grass, why is it not pink? So you can like just change around everything. It's cool. It's fun.
Yeah, and it's hard to remind yourself that, you, as a creative person, you don't have to get permission from anyone. It doesn't have to, like, already exist in a different movie for you to create it. Like, you are the person that gets to create it. It's like this lock that I always get as a writer to create a new, like, world, a new universe. Like, no, I'm the one that gets to say it. Like, it doesn't have to, it could be the weirdest thing in the world, but I get to, like, actually define this universe, this thing.
Yeah, it's pretty great. It's very freeing. I didn't realize I could have so much fun with it, and it's definitely like a whole nother level of creating the art, and it's kind of taught me that I can go deeper with my own, just like fine art, that I can make things that are more weird, and I can kind of go out of the lines of what is reality, I guess.
Absolutely. Well, and now with, like you're saying, with your fine art and all the stuff that you have to do related to that, to the business aspect of it, like how do you find the time then to, get to play around in this new world that you've created? That's
been really hard, actually. I've been trying to figure out a way to properly transfer over, because I've gotten used to being able to kind of juggle everything that I have going on now. And so I've been trying to think about how to rearrange everything in my current schedule to kind of fit together with doing the comic. I think I'm going to be making more YouTube videos about the comic, showing speed paintings and stuff of that. Cool. And the process of that. I do still want to do a lot of fine art, but I think fine art will be kind of like my break time, like my break away from the comic. But yeah, it's gonna take some rearranging. We're still trying to figure out too, like, I'm pretty sure we're not gonna make it into a webcomic. I think we're gonna try a publisher, but if it is a webcomic, then we'd have to think about like how often we'd need to post and stuff as well. So there's a lot of different things we're gonna have to try and figure out. I guess just gonna take it day by day.
Very cool. I'm very excited to see it.
Oh, awesome.
So aside from finding time and the other resistances that you mentioned, I was wondering, is there anything else that holds you back as a creative person, or maybe has held you back in the past?
It's hard when you're an artist to not get kind of hung up on, especially in today's age, like comparing yourself to other people. You think other artists are perfect that you see on Instagram and stuff, but everyone struggles with their art, and I think everyone kind of struggles to find their own balance and to find what they're supposed to do with themselves, like with their art. And I feel like it's not something that that it's just happening to you. So it's not something you should put a lot of pressure on yourself about. And when I was younger, I definitely felt like, you know, everyone has the, you know, all the artists I look up to, they all have it figured out. But everyone's kind of going through their own thing, and it's just a matter of making sure you draw every day to get better, and everything else kind of seems to fall in place if you go with, you know, your intuition, how you feel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, drawing every day or getting to your creative passion every day, even if it's only like 5 minutes, even if, you know, all the other stuff that you have to do, not just with your, you know, your career, but just with family and friends and just life. It's just so important to have that kind of sacred time where you're able to just get, you know, put pen to paper or just start typing or just get a little bit of time every single day. Make sure that habit kind of gets maintained. And yeah, comparing yourself to others, that is a tricky thing, because it's important to stay inspired by other people and to, like, you know, be kind of immersed in that type of inspiration, but it can also be super overwhelming and kind of stop you in your tracks because you're never going to be quite like any other artist, you know?
Exactly. You kind of have to put a limit on yourself as to how much you look at other artists' stuff. I find that it is good to kind of just go out in nature when you're traveling, to kind of take note of what's around you, not just what you're looking at on the screen. Things that are, you know, 3-dimensional, not just flat. And
yeah,
it's hard not to just you know, be looking at photos for references or other artists. It's definitely important to take in what you feel and what you see around you, as opposed to, you know, the screen.
I like to call it the IRL inspiration, the in real life.
Yeah,
you know, you are a part of this like crazy planet that you can draw so much inspiration from, and it's important to kind of look up from your phone or look up from, you know, whatever you're doing and to take it in.
Yeah, I've always noticed that, like, when I actually draw from not just the things I see around me, but the feelings that I have, it's made for the most expressive paintings that I've created. So I think it's definitely good to kind of stay tuned to you and have a place where you cut everything out.
What happens when you don't like the emotions that you're feeling and you don't necessarily want them to seep into your art?
I don't know. I've honestly never felt that. I've always kind of used art as a way to get rid of bad feelings. I feel like that's a therapeutic thing for me. But if you didn't want to, then I don't know. I always feel like going out in nature is probably the best cure for that, because then you're just going to want to draw the beauty that's around you, and it kind of takes focus away from anything cruddy you might be feeling.
Yeah, it is the cure-all.
It is, definitely.
And I know you've said this before too, and I've said it on the show as well, is that you don't have to show anybody your art anyway. You know, you can get those like therapeutic feelings out. You can get it out of you, and like it can just be between you and your sketchbook, or you and your word processor, or you and whatever, and nobody ever has to see it. So to kind of like take that expectation of audience out of your head while you're creating.
Yeah, there's so much pressure to share everything, especially if you do have a bit of a following too. You feel like you need to share things, and you feel like you need to constantly be posting, because that's how a lot of the social media algorithms work. Like, if you're not posting, then people will stop seeing your work. So there's a lot of pressure to show everything, but I feel like it's not something that is healthy. Like, you should feel like you have a safe place to create. Otherwise, you're going to end up only creating things you're comfortable creating, and you're never going to grow to your true potential. I don't know, that's how I feel at least.
Yeah, I completely, I co-sign. Before we get to the final push, I was wondering, do you have a favorite book or YouTube clip or anything else that you draw inspiration from, or even a person, an artist, and that maybe we could as well?
Yeah, actually, I really like Kim Jeonggi. He is an amazing artist. If you guys haven't heard of him, I spent so much money on one of his books. I saved up for a long time, and I finally bought it, and it is like one of the best investments I've ever made, because I literally open it and I'm instantly inspired, and I've never felt that with anything before. He just creates these landscapes that are just full of just these perfectly drawn chaotic things, and he's drawn so many things that he can just draw something in pen and it looks perfect. He doesn't do any, he doesn't try and do the skeletal stuff underneath in light pen marks. He just puts it down, and it just looks perfect. He's pretty famous, so a lot of people have probably heard of him, but I'd say that his art books are definitely worth the investment. And for reading, I've been reading Name of the Wind, and that's been a pretty great escape for me, which I feel like is pretty important for artists. If you're thinking a lot at nighttime, it's definitely helped me a lot to have something to read to kind of quiet my mind so that I can kind of escape for a while. And that's been a pretty great book for that. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. All my other inspiration's pretty random. I get a lot of inspiration from Studio Ghibli movies. And so yeah, if you guys haven't seen that, you should definitely check those out, because those are very inspiring Academy Award winning movies.
Very cool. We'll have all of that linked up in the show notes page, yourcreativepush.com/Audra Auclair. Audra, it's time for the final push. And this is where I ask you to reach through the microphone and grab the shoulder of one of the listeners that you've already really inspired today, and just give them your best final words of advice and really push them to pursue their own creative passions.
I'd have to say, don't get caught up on the numbers or what other people are doing. Comparison is the killer of happiness, and in the end, it's about the art, and that's all that really matters. Whether you're making it to heal yourself, or to feel proud of yourself, to feel accomplished, or to find some sort of purpose in your life, it'll ground you like any religion if you nurture it and take it one step at a time. Just remember that it's all about you. It's something it can be as private as you want. It can be as public as you want. And don't worry about it, because in the end, it's just an extension of yourself, and you'll always grow. You'll always get better. And if you just kind of nurture it and take care of yourself and work at it.
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree more. And Audra, thank you so much for coming on the show and for giving us that push.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been really fun.
Absolutely. And you can find Audra on our website, which is audraauclair.com. That's AUDRAAUCLAIR.com. And there you can find links to everything: YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, all the places where she's at. And you can find everything again that we talked about today at yourcreativepush.com/Audra Auclair. Audra, thanks again.
Thank you.
Huge thanks to Audra for coming on the show. Really inspiring episode, and 3 major things that I want to get to from this episode. Number 1 was attacking your weaknesses. I think this is something that a lot of us turn a blind eye to, is our weaknesses. We really, instead of attacking our weaknesses every single day and put the work in to get better at them, we instead focus on our strengths, because that makes us feel better from day to day. We want to impress ourselves. We want to have that immediate satisfaction from our time that we've taken out of our busy lives to devote to this creative passion. We want to have this tangible thing that we can be satisfied with. And I think when we actually work on our weaknesses, that is where the actual long-term benefits come from. The actual long-term satisfaction will come from, but you can't see that in the short term because of the fact that you suck at it at this point. It's a tricky thing to do, because you can spend hours in a single day and feel like everything that you just put out on paper, everything that you just typed up, everything that you just played on your musical instrument, whatever it is, sucked. And that can be a little bit demoralizing, because it feels like that time was wasted. But it's not wasted, because you are getting better day by day by putting in that time that you need to put in to your weaknesses to really amplify your skills and put yourself on a new level as a creative person. So definitely think about that. Focus on your weaknesses. You know what they are, so just work on them. And number 2 is that quote that she said, it's the same reason that I do a lot of things. I just have a feeling that I should do it, and I do it. And I think that's the entire purpose of this podcast, is to just do it whenever you get that feeling, wherever it comes from. I'm supposed to play music. I'm supposed to write a novel. I'm supposed to do this crazy, weird thing that nobody's ever done before. Instead of getting in your head and thinking of all the reasons why you shouldn't do it, just do it. You have that feeling for a reason, and a lot of times you won't realize why you were supposed to do it until after you've done it. So just stop hesitating, stop wasting time, and just get to it. And the third thing is this idea of creating new worlds, or giving yourself permission to create new worlds. Like I've said before on previous episodes, this is something that I definitely struggle with as a writer. It's that notion that if it hasn't been done before, then you don't have the permission to do it yourself. When we get these weird, crazy ideas, we often like to think back to, where did this idea come from? Was it from a movie in the past that I've seen before? Was it from a book? And then you look back and try to find that. And there's 2 reasons why you do that, and both of those reasons will stop you in your tracks. One is that if you find it, that means that it exists. That means that, okay, maybe you do have the permission to create this because it's not totally crazy. At least one other person has thought of this and has kind of put it into the universe. And the second reason is that if you find it, it will give you a reason to not do it because it's been done before. So the takeaway there is to create it no matter what. Don't look back. Don't try to find it in other places, because number 1, that's going to influence the way that you actually do create it if you do have the bravery to create it. And number 2, if you do find it, you might just give yourself an excuse to not move forward with that idea. And like Audra said, even if you do have to create a new fake science to give justification to this kind of new idea that you've birthed, do that. Even if it is this 4-year process of creating a new planet, a new world, a new solar system, a new universe to have your characters kind of play around in, do it. That might be kind of overwhelming, the fact that you have to put all this thought into this one simple idea that you've kind of thought about, this one character perhaps. But if it's that thing that keeps nagging at you, that keeps latching onto your brain and won't let go, well, you kind of have to feed that idea. You kind of have to give it life. That's your job as a creative person. So definitely put the time in to that idea and stop looking back and trying to give yourself excuses to not create it. So my thanks again to Audra for coming on the show. Such great insights from her, not just about her art, about her YouTube channel, but just about the creative life. I really appreciate that. On Thursday's show, we have Lana Crooks. Lana is a really fun, creative person. I had such a great time talking with her about the creative process. She does these felt sculptures, and not just any felt sculptures, they're felt skeleton sculptures. And she has such a great outlook on the creative process, the idea of getting an idea and just jumping in. So a very inspiring talk with her on Thursday. You can find her at lanacrooks.com. That's LANACROOKS.com. And on Instagram, she is Lana Crooks. We'll have her links, as well as everything we talked about today with Audra, linked up at yourcreativepush.com/215. But that's all I've got for you today. Hopefully you were inspired to go and get your work done. So go and get it done. And we will be here for you on Thursday if you need the push again. I love you all, and we will see you then. Bye. Never miss a push. Head to yourcreativepush.com/subscribe to find the easiest way for you to subscribe to the podcast.